Bonnke is a businessman, speaker, and life strategist, a graduate of the University of Port Elizabeth. Bonnke holds a bachelor's degree in commerce, majoring in economics and business management. With over a decade of specialization in strategic marketing and communications, brand management, trade and sales operation, innovation and a new product development with Standard Bank, SAB Miller, PepsiCo and Celsey, he is also the former CEO of the communications firm, a leading integrated marketing and communication solutions agency, a position he held for over 10 years. Bonnke is also the founder of Power of One, an organization whose mission is to guide and support people in their journey to discover their purpose. He's also an author with 4 books published. Welcome our next speaker, Bonnke Shipalana.
Good day, brothers and sisters. It's an honor to share the platform with fellow brothers Femi and Ben. And thanks a lot for Brother Femi for the insight and the wisdom that he has shared with us as the first panelist or first speaker. I also want to say a big thank you to the Pacesetters Church and Pastor Gbenga for thinking of me and inviting me to share the little that I have in my soul and spirit in relation to the topic that we were asked to deal with, which is positioning the future of the African of the marketplace in Africa. The title of my message for today will be the power of one. The power of one. And I hope that through my talk, you'll get an understanding of what I mean by the power of one. We are all aware that we live in an ever-changing world. I mean, the 40th were different from the 50th. The 60th were different from the 70th. We've got young people that we call millennials. And it's because the environment that they reside in is quite different from the environment that I grew up in. It's different from the environment that my parents or my grandparents grew up in. To be honest and to take it a step further, I can say that movement is fundamental to life and growth. Movement is fundamental to life and growth. And by this, I mean that if there is no movement, something is dead. If there is no movement, there is no growth. If there is no movement, there is no change. For those who are fathers or mothers, you know that when a baby is born, what the doctors are looking for is movement from the baby. They want the baby to move. They want the baby to cry. And it's the movement or the crying that symbolizes life. If ever you've taken your car to a car mechanic and there's an issue, it's the cracking of the engine that makes the mechanic jump for joy. If he starts the car and the car does not make any sound or there's no movement, then there's something wrong with the car. It might be called a car, but it won't function like a car. So movement is fundamental to life and growth. But sometimes as the human race, this life moves faster than our own plans. Sometimes we are not prepared or properly prepared for the movement. Or last but not least, sometimes life just happens. Suddenly you wake up the next day and there's a new world in front of you. And I am sure that's what you are currently facing as a continent, as planet Earth, where suddenly December we're all celebrating, yeah, 2020 is gonna be great, 2020 is gonna be amazing. Come Jan, come Feb, suddenly we're on lockdown. A few days ago in South Africa, it was Freedom Day. And to be honest, most of us were in our houses. We were not really free in terms of movement. So here is a new world that we find ourselves in. But my talk today is not going to focus on the long-term implications of COVID-19. Thanks, my brother Femi has covered a bit on that. But I want to focus on the power of Africa and the power of Africans. The power of Africa and the power of Africans. It's a fact. we are currently facing COVID-19. A fact is what happens to you. A fact is a current situation. A fact is a current environment. But there is a truth which oversees, which is more powerful than a fact. And every single day when I read about COVID-19, see business retrenching, see business failing, see economies or countries struggling, I always remember Romans 8 verse 37. Romans 8 verse 37, and it reads as follows. No, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved you. No, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved you. So the fact is that we are facing a big challenge. The fact is life is going to change. The fact is we are not sure of how our businesses might be next week, next year. The fact is I don't know if I'll be able to travel to a meeting in the next 2, 3, 4, 6 months. But regardless of what the facts are, the truth is I'm a conqueror through him who loves me. And for me, every single morning, I remind myself that I'm a conqueror. I might be facing something. I might have failed in business. I might have been abused when I was young. Whatever challenge I have faced, in all these things, all, including COVID-19, I'm a conqueror through him who loved me. When I did my research regarding the definition of a marketplace, the simplified version of defining what a marketplace is, it's where buyers and sellers meet to facilitate the exchange of goods and service. Buyers and sellers meet to facilitate the exchange of goods and service. But somewhere there at the back, as Africans, we adopted the buyer's label and completely ignored and handed power to someone to own the seller's label. Somewhere, somehow, I am not sure how far back, we as Africans adopted in this exchange, we said we want to be buyers, and completely ignored and gave away, handed power to someone to own the seller's label. And for those who understand demand and supply and the price interaction or relationship, you know that the more buyers you have, the higher the demand, then the higher the price. So if us as Africans, we own this buyer's label, we keep on buying, the price is going to go up and we're going to remain as buyers while the seller is becoming richer and richer every single day. And I'm not only talking about business, I'm also talking about employment. Whenever you go and apply for a job, don't get it twisted. You are not there to be employed. You are there to sell your services. If you get into a company and there's an exchange between them paying you, they are paying you for your expertise, they are paying you for your experience, but there's a payment for what you are offering. There is something in you that you are selling. But because we have this mindset of buyers, we go into a company and all we do is beg for a job, beg to be paid, beg for a bonus, beg for a salary. We need to go back and own the seller's label. We need to go back and own the power to sell, and not only own the power to be buyers. When I looked at the interaction between a buyer and a seller, my mind quickly went back to the book of Exodus. It reminded me of the Israelites when they were slaves in Egypt under the leadership of Pharaoh. In summary, the Israelites never owned what they worked on. They could have built the pyramid. They never owned it. It still remained Pharaoh's property. They didn't have control over their future. They could not influence their future because everything was done through Pharaoh. Their kids were born as slaves. Simply means that all generations were born as slaves. All generations were born as buyers. And I think that's what has happened to us. In various countries, kids are taught about entrepreneurship from a young age. Kids are given a chance to run a business from a young age. Business loans are offered much easier. But in Africa, most of us go to university to be employed. Even if we have an opportunity to start a business, we focus on the risk rather than the rewards. Most of us, when we start earning a salary, we spend more money on insurance. We spend more money on life policies rather than selling something that is already within us. But in the book of Exodus, change did happen. Change came in under the leadership of one person, Moses, the son of Aaron. At the age of 80, he was instructed by God to approach Pharaoh for the release of the Jewish people. It took one individual, not a protest, not a march, not a petition. It took one person who had trust in God and saw God as the source, who had trust in God and saw God as the source. For us Africans to reposition ourselves for the future of the marketplace, to reposition ourselves from being buyers to being sellers, we need to trust in God and we need to see God as the source. And those are going to be the 2 points that I'm going to summarize that are going to help us reposition ourselves from buyers to sellers. The first point is trust in God. Trust in God. Having grown up in church, been in business, I had lots of friends who are Christian, I realized that most of us believe in God, but never reach a level where we trust God. Most of us believe in God, but never reach that new higher level of trusting in God. The simplest way I can dramatize the difference between trust and believe, somewhere in Canada, there was a young guy who used to be a great tightrope walker. And after doing it between buildings and getting fame, he decided to do it between two areas, and there was a big waterfall in between. So people were standing on both sides clapping hands for him. He walked from the left to the right on a tightrope 3,000 meters above ground, and everyone clapped hands for him. Second time he did the same thing, but this time he actually was pushing a wheelbarrow from this side to that side. People clapped hands for him. He asked, "Do you believe I can do this again?" Everyone clapped hands for him. He took a pack of milli, that weighed 100 kilograms, put it inside the wheelbarrow, pushed it from left to right, and then actually went back, and people clapped and says, "Do you believe I can do this again?" Everyone clapped hands for him. They took out the milli bag and looked at the audience and asked one simple question. Is there anyone who volunteers to get into the wheelbarrow? I'll push you from left to right, right to left. Silence. No one was willing to do it. It simply means that the audience believed in him, but they did not trust him. The audience believed in what he was doing, but they did not trust him. Trust requires risk. Trust requires participation. Trust requires involvement. Trust requires taking leadership. Trust requires ownership. Trust requires responsibility. You can't say you trust something if you're not inside or doing it or participating or owning the process. Most of us are believers who are out there clapping, "Wow, the richest man in Africa. Wow, the richest man in South Africa. Wow, he's donating this and that and that. Now we need a relief fund, so we're getting it from so and so. Well done." That is belief in someone. Trust requires you to participate. Trust requires you to make a movement. For us to become sellers, we have to trust in God. We believe that God can do things for others, but we don't believe that God can do things for us. We believe that God can do things through other people, but we don't believe that God can do it through me. If God can give XYZ $1 billion, why can't I get it? Why can't I start a business to have that $1 billion? So we need to progress and grow from belief, which is external view, to trust, which is internal participation. Number two, we need to see God as the source. We need to see God as the source. For those who run businesses and pay salaries, I'm sure that none of your employees have ever gone to an ATM and bowed down to the ATM and say, oh, ATM, thank you for the money. Or if ever they see a bank advert or bank billboard, bow down to the bank billboards, oh, bank, thank you for the money. Because they fully understand that the ATM is not the source, but the resource. The ATM is just a channel for them to access their funds. I, as a CEO, press enter, the money goes into the account, they go and withdraw it from a particular ATM, or they swipe whenever they're buying. They never worship the ATM, they never worship the Swiss machine, they understand that that is just a channel. I'm here to remind you today that your boss, your company, the business deal that you have, the business partner that you're working with, the tender that you are currently applying for is not the source, but the resource. There's only one source in this world, and that is God. And that is why now, even during this COVID-19 period, even though my flesh might be worried, my soul is satisfied. As long as I am still close to the source, there is nothing that is going to stop me. Because I am close to the source, I'm a conqueror through the source who loves me. Unfortunately, most of us, because we're in business, because we're in the marketplace, because we want to get promoted at work, we have made our bosses the source. We've made government the source. We've made the banks the source. We've made whoever opens doors for us the source. And God is just chilling there watching you. He says, hey, my son and my daughter, why are you replacing me? You are taking a channel. You are taking an ATM and thinking that is the source. The sad thing about a resource is that if you don't put anything in, as time goes on, you can't withdraw from it. Let's be honest, regardless of how good your boss loves you at work, if you don't come to work for 2 weeks or a month, you won't get paid. Doesn't matter how long you've worked for the company. If you deposit $200 at a bank, you can't go and withdraw $250. You don't have it. The bank might give an overdraft until a certain extent. So resources are depending on your input. While with the source, while with God, who sent Christ to die for me before I even sinned, his love for me has nothing to do with my action. It's a father-son, father-daughter, mother-son, mother-daughter love. My love for you is not dependent on your action. Yes, your action might influence how I interact with you, but my love for you is in my gut, is in my soul, is in my spirit. It has nothing to do with you responding to my request or doing anything. As long as you come back and say, Dad, I am sorry, my love for you is gonna overflow forever. So those 2 points are critical for us to shift from being buyers into sellers. Trust in God and see God as the source. As I conclude, it took one person to lead the change. And that's where the power of one comes in. I strongly believe that for us as Africans, it's time for the Moses generation. It's time for the Moses generation to rise, to stand up and take charge of this continent. Take charge as sellers, not only as buyers. If you go and read your Bible, you realize that Moses was born in slavery. Moses was not born anywhere else. He was born in slavery. Even though he moved and stayed with Pharaoh and Pharaoh's daughter, in that era, he was born in a slavery condition. In his heart, he knew where he comes from. And what that means for me and you, we are born in Africa. Some of us are very fortunate. We were able to run our businesses. We're able to move from LSM2 to LSM10. We don't have issues with the monthly cash flows. But deep inside, we know that Africa has been enslaved. We know that Africa is a continent of buyers rather than sellers. I want to encourage you and say this to you. You don't have to wait for the situation to change. You have to change the situation. There's a quote by William Butler which goes something like this: do not wait to strike till the iron is hot, but make it hot by striking it. Do not wait to strike till the iron is hot, but make it hot by striking it. And for us Africans, we need to start moving. We need to start participating. We need to start to be involved. We need to start taking leadership position. We need to start taking ownership. That is trust, and that is seeing God as a source. Number two, Moses had to leave Egypt. Moses had to leave their system. Even though we are born under this dark cloud of bias, under this dark cloud of just following the system, we have to move out spiritually and from a mindset position. Matthew 6 verse 24 reads as follows: no one can serve two masters. Either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. I am sure that Moses could not save the Israelites if he was still serving Pharaoh. He had to move out, reconnect with his God, know that God is the source, trust in God's instruction. Then he can go back and fight Pharaoh for the release of the Israelites. Number two, Revelations 3:15-16 says that I know your deeds. You are neither cold nor hot. How I wish you're one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm about to vomit. Other version says, spit you out of my mouth. Because most of us are balancing between God and this world, balancing between the source and the resource. God says, I don't like it that way. Either you believe in me or not. Don't believe in me when you're in need, and when I give you the resources and the wisdom, then you leave me to go and do things with the world. Even if you have money, still pray to me. Even when you're struggling, still pray to me. Even when you have accounts, still pray to me. Even if you get a new job, still pray to me. Everything starts with God, not only when you are in need. You might be sitting there and say, Bonnke, I'm just one poor person in a village in Africa. How will I ever change my life? How will I ever change my community? My brother and sister, there's a verse that you all know, Jeremiah 1 verse 5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. When I read that verse for the first time, I got slightly confused. It says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before I formed you. So there is this you, I knew you. Simply meaning that before God created this physical structure that we call a body or Bonnke, there was a you that God had created that was placed within this particular you. So in you as a person, there are two yous. There's this you that people see, there's the you that God created. And it's about time that the you that God created becomes more powerful than the you that the world created. Because whatever the world creates for you, it can take away from you. But whatever God created in you is more powerful than what the world is in you. So it's about time for us to discover our purpose, discover what God has placed within us, and use that as the bridge to trust him. Use that as a bridge to see him as a source. Your natural flesh, your natural understanding, your natural education can never trust God, can never see God as a source. It's the you, the purpose, the soul, the breath that He placed in you that is going to assist you in trusting in God and seeing God as a source. And if we do that, I bet you the next generation will be born as sellers and not buyers. May God bless you all.